Greetings, dear friends and listeners. Welcome to Torah in Motion's podcast of Jewish ideas, a place where serious minds discuss the great ideas at the heart of the Jewish tradition. I'm your host, Kimche. Allow me to make formal introductions and explain what it is that we will be doing here. This podcast is, unsurprisingly, dedicated to the exploration of Jewish ideas, which we take, in its broad sense, to mean all the ideas that are connected to Judaism or the Jewish people. This podcast is based on two simple premises. The first is that the extraordinary, millennia-long history of the Jewish people includes a magnificent intellectual tradition. Jews have often had to live under adverse conditions, scattered, vulnerable, aliens within a hostile society, and frequently under the threat or reality of persecution. And yet, their intellectual output has been nothing short of astounding. The diversity and depth of this tradition of ideas can hardly be overstated. From the narratives of the Bible to the legal discussions of the Talmud, from ancient esotericism to medieval philosophy, from romantic Ladino poetry to modern Yiddish theater, from Italian mysticism to Yemenite rationalism, from revolutionary anarchism to bourgeois liberalism, Jewish ideas have encompassed the full range of human intellectual activity. They intersect with every possible discipline and can enrich the discussion of any given topic. Entire libraries have been written on the ideas relating to Judaism and the Jewish people, but, as anyone in this field will tell you, we have scarcely scratched the surface. The second premise of this podcast is that this Jewish intellectual tradition is absolutely fascinating and worthy of our time and attention. Speaking from experience, I can tell you that the consideration and discussion of the Jewish intellectual tradition has the power to expand the mind, engage the heart, and enrich one's lived experience. This is something that we intend to demonstrate during the upcoming episodes. So, I hear you ask, what exactly will we be doing here at the podcast of Jewish Ideas? Each episode will feature me, your host, sitting in conversation with a scholar, thinker, teacher, or author who has contributed significantly to some corner of Jewish intellectual history. The focus of the discussion will not be my guest, and it will certainly not be me. Rather, our focus in each episode will be on ideas. Because it is ideas that capture our interest here. Where they are from, what they signify, to whom they are directed, the problems with which they wrestle, the modes in which they are communicated, and the effects they have in the world. Some episodes will focus on a specific idea or nest of ideas, while others will focus on a thinker or school of thinkers at some point within Jewish history. But every episode will attempt to plumb the depths of these ideas. We hope to use these conversations as a vehicle to dissect and analyze Jewish ideas to the greatest extent possible in an hour-long conversation. And it is this, dear listeners, that will set our podcast apart from the many fine options available out there. Our episodes will resemble less a standard podcast interview and something closer to a chavruta, a dialogue between two enthusiasts in the realm of Jewish ideas, whose goal is to reach the kind of depth and clarity that can only be attained through serious intellectual cut and thrust. So, who will benefit from this podcast? Well, hopefully, just about everyone. Everyone is invited to listen, to engage with these ideas, to discuss it with their family and friends. While our conversations will assume that you have a basic familiarity with Jewish religion, history, and culture, we hope that our discussions will be broad enough to intrigue and engage people with a wide variety of interests and backgrounds. It is on this note that we ought to clarify the following important point. We firmly believe that the discussion of great Jewish ideas is something that should be accessible to everyone, regardless of ethnicity, nationality, and political and religious commitments. Therefore, this podcast and its conversations will be undertaken in a spirit of academic inquiry and broad-mindedness. We invite you to participate in this conversation spanning many centuries, in which everyone can find their own place. Similarly, we will be conducting our conversations within very broad intellectual parameters. Our guests will come from a wide variety of backgrounds and hold a broad array of opinions on every imaginable subject. We assume that you will agree with some of our guests and disagree with others. Excellent. We would have it no other way. That is exactly how serious discussions must take place. Finally, before we begin, a word or two about your host. My name is JJ Kimche. As you may have been able to detect, I was born and raised in the United Kingdom, but I now find myself residing here in the United States. I have been immensely privileged to live a life in which studying and debating the great ideas at the heart of the Jewish tradition has been my everyday pursuit. I am fortunate to have been granted the opportunity to learn, teach, and conduct research at some of the world's great centers of academic and religious learning. I am currently pursuing a doctorate in Jewish intellectual history at Harvard University, in which I focus on the great ideas swirling among Jewish and Christian intellectual circles during the 19th century. I consider myself immensely fortunate to be able to do what I love for a living, to read, write, discuss, and teach about the great Jewish intellectual tradition. It is the tantalizing corners of this world that I hope to share with you all during our forthcoming conversations. I invite you all to embark on this journey with me. Welcome to the podcast of Jewish Ideas. I do hope you enjoy.